Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Tonight I just want to reflect on some of the verses that we heard in Surah Yusuf. Surah Yusuf is one of the very interesting surahs that the more you read it, the more interesting it becomes. Every time you read the story, it's like you're hearing it for the first time. It's like you feel and you kind of see the whole story unfolding from the time of Yusuf alayhi salam as a child and then growing up all the way to becoming the king of Egypt. One of the lessons that we could take that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Ayyub alayhi salam, the father, the son, who both were tested in different ways. إِنَّهُ مَنْ يَتَّقِي وَيَصْبِرْ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. That whoever has taqwa and is patient, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never let the person who does good, their efforts go to waste. So that's the verse. In the context of Yusuf alayhi salam and Ayyub alayhi salam, and the whole family, we see that there's trials there that happened, and each one of them had a very high level of patience. Now, patience is something that has to do with three categories. There are three types of being patient, right? We say patient. You have patience.
Recorded, you're saying Yaqub.
Sorry, Yaqub alayhi salam. Say. Ayyub alayhi salam, of course, he was also one of the people, the prophets were tested, so it's true in that matter, but we're talking about of Yaqub alayhi salam, Jacob, Yaqub alayhi salam, the son of Ishaq, the son of Ibrahim alayhi salam, so the Israelites. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam, alayhi salatu wassalam, ala nabina wa alayhi salatu wassalam. Three types of patience. Sabr. A lot of people think that patience is that when difficulties happen, when things don't go your way, or you are tested with some kind of trial or tribulation, then you are patient. Patient is more than that. Sabr is more than that. There are three types of sabr. One is sabr ala ta'at. Then sabr anil ma'asi. And sabr ala masa'ib. I'll translate that inshallah. Three types of sabr. The first one is patience on doing something good, right? Your fasting is an act of ibadah that has patience in it. Your prayer, your standing in salat every night, there's a level of patience that you have to have. So sabr ala ta'a. And then there's sabr anil ma'asi. The second one is to have patience against bad deeds, against sins. Staying away from sins is also difficult. And then you are tested with that. And then there's a third level of sabr anil masa'ib, al masa'ib, to have patience on any difficulty that comes your way. And subhanallah, Yaqub alayhi salam and Yusuf alayhi salam were tested somewhat in those three categories, right? They had to be patient, they had to do what they were doing because both they were prophets, and one eventually became the leader and the responsible person of a state. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested them. So a lot of times we think about, okay, if we are patient, then inshallah Allah is gonna give us the fruit of our patience very quickly. We made dua, we went through a lot of difficulty, it's gonna happen right away. Let's take away this lesson tonight, that when you are tested with whatever category, most importantly the third one, we usually think that we make dua and we go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we plead to God, and God's supposed to just respond right away. And that calamity should be lifted right away. My call should be answered right away. Right? Spontaneous gratification. That's what we have become accustomed to in this day and age. That we want right away results. We want results, spontaneous results, spontaneous gratification. It doesn't work that way. A prophet, son of a prophet, a grandson of a prophet, and a great grandson of a prophet were tested not just for a little bit, not just for 1 week, 1 month. According to one riwayah, their separation of Yusuf alayhi salam and Yaqub was 40 years minimum. And one riwayah is 80 years. For 40 years, until he became blind. And then there's one also aspect of complaining. people say that you shouldn't complain. You complain to God. If out of desperation you complain, and you complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah loves that. And you don't complain to God that, why did you do this to me? You complain that, oh Allah, I'm weak and I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and I cannot take this anymore. Right? Even our Prophet ﷺ, when he went to Taif, when he was stoned, and in the end, what did he say? Oh Allah, I complain to you. Ashku ilayka ضعف قوتي وقلة حيلتي وهواني على الناس. That, oh Allah, I complain to you of my weakness, the weakness of my strategy, and the belittleness of myself in front of people, that people look down to me now. So he's complaining to God of his state. That's totally fine. Allah loves that. Allah wants you to speak to him, wants you to complain to him. وَتَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. Allah talks about this woman who, all right, we hardly ever talk about sisters, and the women's aspect of our history and stories. This woman who came to the Prophet ﷺ was complaining to the Prophet, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about that story, and Allah mentioned the word tashtaki, that she was complaining to the Prophet. وَتَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. Right? She came to the Prophet and she was complaining. So complaining to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's totally fine. As long as you don't blame God. You're not being on the, offensive, part, that you start to blame God, that why does this have to happen to me? Why does this always have to happen to me? Why I'm in this situation, right? That's giving up hope. And that's what patience is about. Not to give up hope. Even after 40 years, it was almost impossible for the father to see his son after such a long time, when he's already an adult and he's become a mature adult. And nobody's mentioning about him. He's still hopeful. He's still hopeful. So always be hopeful, always be optimistic. Don't never give up hope until, is there a limit? Until death. Until you die. Inshallah, then you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a clear heart and a clear mind, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to uplift the calamity from the people all around the world, especially our brothers and sisters in Sudan, our brothers and sisters and families in Palestine and Gaza, and so many other places of the world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for all of them and uplift the calamity. And oh Allah, show us the lessons that we can take from it. And oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, allow us to be of use and beneficial to the situation. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen.